Everyone, it's Miranda Patron back with you all. It is so great to be back and painting. We're gonna do this fun pumpkin spice blossom mandala here. It came out awesome. I'm super excited to show you how to do this one. So bear with me on the new temporary studio setup, but we're gonna work it through. All right, so we have these new tools that were given to me to try, and of course I had to bend them to see if that would work as well. They're super cute, fun, lightweight, so I'm taking them for a test run. They're from a company called Artenium, and they have their own little kits here. It's like a whole starter kit with stencils. All right, so today also I'm going to be using Etcher tool, and I sell these in my shop. It's a dual end, so this I scratch on the design and then I don't have to erase it like pencils. And this other, the gold end, I can dot with. So we're using Decoart Americana paints, a variety here, multi-surface metallics, and we're going to do the center with the Prisme PBO. You can see it has some awesome effects. It takes a little practice to work with, but it's super fun. If you don't have this, you can always do the center in a different paint, obviously. So I just dotted on even with the dotters. Sometimes that works. All right, I'm super excited. So let's get started. All right, so I have this lovely stone here from Capcouriers. It's one of their Santorini stones, the large flat white. It's nice, it's smooth, and I'm going to just kind of eyeball my center, but you can measure it if you want to. So I'm going to use a compass, and we're going to do a 3-inch circle, and that's going to be painted black for our background. And you obviously can change the size up. So I'm just using a matte black from the Americana line. And I just pour it on here, but just makes it easier for me to spread around. I'm just using a soft acrylic brush, and we'll spread the paint around here on our circle. And any of the products that I use on here, I try to post links for. So like the turntable I'm using, the stones, my shop, anything like that should all have links in the description here for you. But please feel free to ask any questions you guys have. You know, I'm always trying to answer as many as I can to help you all out, because I want everyone else to enjoy this as much as I do. There's our nice circle background there. All right, so now on to the Prisme. This is the PBO. And again, I'm just going to eyeball my center, but you can measure. And I like to pour it just because the more you manipulate this paint, the less effects you get. So I like the way it looks like with the little cells that when it dries here. There you go. So I actually did a time lapse, so this dried in about, I don't know, half an hour. So now I'm going to use these dotting tools, and we're going to kind of do a plus sign for the 90-degree angles, and then on the 45-degree angles. So you'll end up with the 8 dots to start off our design. I'm going to go with this coral and my larger dotting tool. And so it's just kind of, you know, you make it above, below. You don't necessarily have to put marks down or use a stencil. Just do a plus sign and then the 45-degree angles with the coral. All right, so now I'm using white, and I'm just going to do a little bit of a smaller dot in between all the corals that we just put down. And each of these, if you keep your beginning rows symmetrical, it helps keep the symmetry throughout your mandala. So now I'm just going to grab my Etcher tool here, use the gold end, and grab some of the wet paint to do a couple little dots on either side of our white. And you can see how tiny that other dotting tool I used for the white dot is one of the smaller ones, but this is going even tinier than that tool allowed. So with this side, I can just kind of etch onto the black paint. We're going to etch some little sideways S-scroll designs, S-curl. And you can't see it the greatest. The lighting in my new studio, the temporary area here, is not the best. So it's something I obviously have to work on. All right, I'm going to use the coral shell color. And I'm just going to follow along those little lines that I drew for my S curls here. And I'm starting in the middle of the S because I want the larger dots towards the center. So you can see how starting in the middle of each of these, you get the largest dot there, and then as you curl around to the outside of each of these little S curls, you wear more paint off of the tool, and then that allows the dots to go smaller progressively without you really having to do anything. I'm still pushing the same pressure each time. So in the middle of the S, up and around, and then the dots get smaller and progressively happens all on its own. But you get this fun little scroll type design. I was so excited to get back into this. I miss you guys all. I hope you're all doing well. I know life is a little hectic and uncertain now, but I've been thinking about you all and keeping busy myself, obviously, but I would love to hear how you're all doing. Please feel free to take time to say hi in the comments. All right, the last of this little guy here. And then I'm gonna grab some of this delicious metallic chocolate. We're gonna do a little dot over each of the darker corals that we put down earlier, in between each of our S curls. Okay, now I'm gonna switch to some copper. And we're gonna go with the larger dotting tool and put a nice big dollop here at the top of every chocolate. All right, so you can see here just working our way around with the copper. And then I'm going to take my etcher tool and do a ring of white around each of these copper dots. So you can see too with this progressively you start at the top with a larger dot, and then as you work your way around the dot without dipping it again, it gets smaller with the white dots because more paint is coming off the etcher tool. Okay, just finishing up our last one here. A couple of more white. Okay, now we're just going to take and put 3 white dots above, and they're a little bit larger because I'm using the dotting tool instead of the etcher. Alright, so we are switching to the Extreme Sheen Coral now with a larger dotting tool. And we're going just about in line with those 3 dots that we put at the top of our little copper elements. And I'm making these fairly large. It's the largest dotting tool that's in this set. But you can also push it around into a bigger circle if you want your dots to be bigger with these tools. So you can just kind of spread it around and make them a little larger. I'm just allowing for a little negative space under it because I want to kind of use that to make some petal shapes around these. Okay, so we have our corals done here, and I'm going to take one of the middle-sized tools, and I'm using some Buttermilk, kind of a vanilla color, and we're just going to do one little bit larger dot above here. Okay, so now I wanted to make kind of like a petal shape around each of these little sections, and I'm going to also do an S curl above these ones. So we can just kind of take this end even of the tool, you can see, and gently put the design into the black paint. And this just allows for me, for my personal preference, so I don't have to make erasure marks or have, you know, pieces of the rubber eraser or chalk or whatever else can be used. And I'm obviously not pushing down too hard because I don't want to scratch the black paint off of the stone. But you can see it gives enough of a light guide so that we can follow it. But I do this too, if you're going to use a stencil, you can do this too and even trace the stencil. And then you have the lines down. Okay, going with Jack-o'-lantern orange. We're going to do each of these S curls just the same way we did the smaller ones, starting in the middle, because I want the largest dots to be in the middle. And then work the way out and around as they get smaller. And we're going to do this for all of them all the way around our mandala. I love working on these stones too. They are so smooth, and the sparkles in them, they make such a great piece to put on a mantle. I put the stones on like plate stands, or I have a new product that I'm testing out that is kind of a very unique product somebody sent me, and I'll be doing a video on that soon. It's some kind of like sticker on the back that it has a ring hooked into it, and then you can hang your stones on the wall. So I'm super excited to check this one out, and I hope you will be too. Put our little dots around here. I got talking and I blended two together, but if you make a mistake with a black background, you can always just let it dry or wipe it off and paint back over it with the black, and it's like it never was there. But I tend to just, if it's something not major, like those two bleeding into one another, I'm just gonna let it fly. So it makes each piece your own. Obviously I was talking and distracted myself, but it's okay. And every piece is gonna be different every time. So I'm just really just dipping it twice. So you dip it once, go on up and around the top, and then one more, and then down around the bottom. And you're just letting the paint run off the tool. I'm pushing the same pressure each time. I am touching the stone. So I hear a lot from everyone that's commenting too that you enjoy the explanation, because I know you can't tell how hard I'm pushing down. You can't really tell, am I touching the stone? Am I just letting it drop off? I'm actually touching the stone. So I hope you are finding that helpful in the videos. I just kind of explain what I'm doing, because obviously you can't read my mind and it's hard to tell if someone's giving pressure, more pressure, less pressure, what you're doing with each tool. So, all right, let's use some cocoa in this little pumpkin spice mandala we have going here. And we're gonna do kind of like a little petal shape around each of those larger corals that we had using the Etcher tool. And I'm just gonna start off to the side for our larger dots here. And just let it go up to kind of a point. And we'll do it on each side here and up and around. And then finish off underneath each of those large coral dots. So same with this one, start bigger around the side. So you can see I have a little tighter space starting off this one. So the spacing is important to double check if you decide you're going to add something to your mandala. It's important to check all the way around the mandala to make sure what you want to put at that point is going to fit at each one. Because even my spacing, you know, painting for years, it's never going to be perfect. So we'll just make a little petal around each of these. I thought it kind of fitting because here with fall coming in, there's pumpkin spice everything. So pumpkin spice blossom, little mandala for us today. Some browns, corals, whites. We have some new followers too here on YouTube, so feel free to pop on and tell me where you're from, say hi. I love hearing comments about the videos, but also love hearing where you're from and what kind of things you're painting, or possibly things you'd like to see painted in the future, what kind of products you're looking for. I went through a couple phases where I just kind of went around dipping and dotting everything I had in the house. Q-tips, pencils, popsicle sticks. What does each shape make? So I even have a couple silicone, oval dotters, that type of thing. It's just fun. Test it out. So this design really is one of the more, I mean, it's intricate, but it's got more negative space, so you can still see the background shining through. Especially after you varnish it all to shine. It's great. I use a lot of times the Liquitex varnish just because it has a UV filter so that your colors won't fade. And I know I've told this story before, even my outdoor stones at our old house. We hit one with a lawnmower. I say we, but it was hit with a lawnmower and it didn't even chip the paint. The lawnmower's blade was not as lucky, but the Liquitex really held up. It protected the paint. And I usually only put one coat on. So that'll be what I varnish my stone with after the fact. I'll pop a link in here too for that, and a couple other good varnishes that I enjoy using. Just finish up our last little cocoa petal here. Alrighty, let's grab some copper. And above each of these S's, let's put a little dot of copper above those. I like to do this just because if I'm going to make swipes up to the top or add an element, that kind of helps me gauge making a petal shape. I'm not really sure why. Comes to a point more in my mind. But you'll find you come up with little tricks and things for yourself. So we're gonna use our tool to do a swipe here on either side to kind of start a different little petal element here around our S scrolls. So I'm just gonna dip here in the buttermilk, and we're going to be about halfway, almost to the top of our cocoa petals. So our thicker end will be starting from the bottom, and we're gonna go up and around that copper that we just put at the top of our S. So I'm just going around either side, but we'll do one way first, and then we'll go back and put swipes up the other side of each of these. So you can see this would be a great spiral idea too. If you just kept doing them on the one side, you can make spirals, and you can change your mandala in a ton of different ways. So it just depends on which thing you do, and then do it all the way around. But for this today, we're going to do a petal shape on either side. I'm going to have the same color, the buttermilk, and we'll work our way around here doing the swipes up to the top. So this is a similar idea. As it gets smaller, it's because the paint is coming off the tool. You don't have to use a smaller tool to drag it out. It just starts off like you had a dot, and then you just drag the dot out, so it makes a little tail at the end. All right, so we are going to bulk up these just a little bit with some coral. And this is the same coral I used for the first coral dots that we put down. So we're carrying that color to the outside now with some swipes. So I'm just using the buttermilk ones kind of as a guide, and then drag it up to the top, just the edge of our background circle here. Okay, so you can see it's thicker at the base, and then you're just pulling it up to the top here. I really liked starting the swipes a while ago just because I feel like it kind of gives something different to just all the dots. I like seeing solid blocks of color mixed in with all the dots. I think it really adds to the designs. You can see we're really looking more like a blossom here. Little petals. And look at the middle. Oh, that center with that PBO is just amazing. So I think what we will do now is go with some champagne. And this is the multi-surface ones. So they're a little bit thicker to work with. You can see it's a little bit heavier. It makes a thicker dot and very shiny. It's like flecks of mica in this, super shiny. But you can see it's a little thicker, so I'm just going to push it around into a dot, which you can do with the brushes too. And they make this champagne color, I believe, also in their Decoart line too for the deco art. So if you wanted to put it on something larger or a mirror, you know, the frame of a picture frame, it's just, I love this shiny. So if you're like me, I just love the metallics. But you can see here how thick it is. It's really just holding on to the tool. And then I just have to kind of push it into shape. Alright, so I'm going to go grab our etcher again, and we're going to do some little swipes in here with the white or your buttermilk. And just kind of tuck them in, make a dot, and then drag it towards the smaller dot under our copper elements here. I'm just kind of dabbing a little dot on each, and then I'm dragging the paint from each of them down in towards the dot. Sometimes too with this edger tool I have to wipe it off just so it's keeping about the same size dots when I pull it down here, because it can get built up just like your other tools. So I just wipe them on a paper towel. At the end I just gently wipe everything, just briskly scrub it off a little, and the paint comes right off. Alright, see how our little guy's looking here. I'm gonna go with the chocolate, I think, now. And above each of these, actually outside the circle, I'm gonna put a fairly large dot of the chocolate metallic. And I like to do this too because then it just kind of blends the background in, as opposed to it always looking like a stark circle. And this, again, the chocolate is one of the multi-surface ones. I'm not sure if I mentioned this before, but the multi-surface just a little bit thicker. They will dot, you can see. And they will be able to be used on ceramics, on metal. You can cook it at 350, bake it, and it will cure, but it also air dries and it will cure. So going back to the white with our etcher, just outside the circle, I'm going to do a little opposite swipe. So I'm starting with the larger end at the top and then I'm dragging it down along the edge of the coral ones that we did earlier. And I'll do this on both sides as well. It's like you just get into a habit of put it down, spin, put it down, spin. You know, you get a little kind of assembly line painting going. But then we'll do it the opposite direction and put the swipes down the other side as well. And then go ahead down the side here too. So you can see as you drag it out, the tail gets smaller. It starts off a little bigger, but I'm not dipping, I'm not doing anything. I'm just doing the same pressure and letting the paint run off the tool. So sometimes you could practice on a piece of paper just to see how long each tool will drag out paint. You know, this is about, I don't know, about just 3/4 of an inch in length. So less paint would be a less lengthy swipe. But it's fun. They're great elements, I think, to add to any of these designs. And then you can always pick up the tool, wipe it off, and then just drag from the tail too if you wanted to stop it sooner. This guy's almost done. We're really coming along with this. I think these colors really just worked well together. I'm excited about this. So now I'm grabbing that extreme sheen coral that we used for our larger coral dots. And I'm just going to go on either side of the champagne, like I said, to just kind of subdue the circle a little bit here, the circle black background. But you can see even mine's not perfect. You put the pink dots down and some have more space than others, some have less. But it still comes out to be such a fun design. No one's measuring or counting your dots, just enjoy the painting process. It's supposed to be therapeutic and enjoyable. Listen to great music, you know, do what you love to do during this time. This came out so awesome. I'm so excited to have done this pumpkin spice blossom mandala here with y'all. Just a reminder, the description will have all the links that I can find for you guys for the products. I'm looking forward to doing so many more videos with you. Thank you so much for your patience with me as I've been moving and with this temporary studio setup. Not what I'm used to, but I hope you enjoyed doing this, and I'm looking forward to many more with you all. Have a great, great day. We'll see you again soon.